Today's episode is brought to you by Stratton Home Inspections. Stratton is our go-to for home inspections. Whether you're buying a home, you're looking to sell your home, having a thorough home inspection can save you a ton of money, and Stratton is the best. Welcome to episode 67 of The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. I'm your host, Janine Igliane, and my guest and co-host, I would say, is none other than Mondai Adair. Mondai is an agent on our team. We've worked together for a little while now. She is a rock star out there. She specializes in Barney Farms, but what you may not know about Mondai is she has an awesome eye for design, but she does have the experience to back it up. And so today, our conversation is going to be all around design, staging, all those super important things when it comes to selling your home. And I've said this before, I said it in a video recently, I think staging your home is even more important than the price in terms of how fast it sells and for how much. So we're going to talk all things staging, all things design. It's going to be a fun episode. Thanks, Mondai.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on today's podcast.
I love it. Well, we get to talk behind the scenes about this stuff, and I love getting to pick your brain, and so I felt like this would be an awesome topic because even if you're not thinking about selling, just understanding design in your home can make a huge difference. So
correct. So with staging, like Janine had mentioned, it is very important to have your home showcase well when it goes on the market, because those first impressions are the most important with buyers.
Yes.
When a buyer steps into a home, they're using all their senses. So they're using sight, smell, feel. So everything involved with those senses is very important when you're stepping into that home to make that first impression.
I love that you said that, because I will tell that to my sellers when trying to get them to understand the importance of why we do what we do. We want a buyer to walk into our client's home and fall in love with it. And they can't do that if it's dirty, if it smells funny, if there's tons of personal photos, or even over-the-top decor. I had a house one time that was very like Pinterest cute, and even myself, as I'm walking through the home, I'm looking at all like the cute decor, and I'm totally not paying attention to the house. So when it comes to selling, we almost want to neutralize the home, right? So less is more, I say all the time, so that a buyer can imagine themselves instead of looking at your family photos on the wall and all that stuff.
Correct, because when you walk into a home, you want, as a buyer, to visualize that home as your home. You want to visualize how your furniture is going to fit, even though you may be getting new furniture, but you still have that visualization as to what you like. Also as to how your family will utilize that home. So that's one other reason why we neutralize homes with staging, because you may have a room in the home that would not fit a future family, and they're having a very difficult time recognizing what they could use that floor plan or that valuable floor space for. So with homes, of course, square footage is very, very important. So if a buyer comes in and they see a room that they just can't visualize using, they're going to feel that home is not right for them, because they're just spending money that doesn't make sense with purchasing a home that doesn't work for them. So we've got to neutralize the homes. We also have to visualize what the demographics, so with future use for that home may be. You may be in an area that has lots of families, so you want to make sure that home is neutralized enough so that a family can visualize their family growing into this home as well. So.
And another big thing, and I know we're kind of going, because I do want to talk about your background, but another thing that's so important that people forget is they think, well, I'll just leave it empty and they'll be able to see a blank canvas and see what they can do with it. But the problem with that is that empty spaces often appear smaller than they are. And again, because people lack vision, then they're sitting there wondering, will my furniture fit in here? Will my bed fit in here? Will my couches fit in here? Because they can't get that feeling of that space. And also, that's why model homes are staged, because it's what sells. It creates that emotional component, and buying a home for a buyer is a very emotional experience. I'm sure you've had this happen many times where buyer walks in the front door and right away they're like, nope, this isn't the one. And they haven't even seen the rest of the house, but they just have that feeling. So
Yes.
yeah, so important.
So you are correct. So with an empty, vacant home, you're going to hear echoes too. You're not going to have that softness in a home. So when you're walking into a home, you want to create that environment of cozy, of something that is livable and not so institutional.
Yes.
So when we stage properties, it's to actually sometimes soften the home.
Yes.
So that a buyer will want to stay in that environment longer.
Yep.
So that they can take a look at more of the details and really get a feel for that home to see if
I
it
love
would work
that.
for them.
Which, and this is a total side note, but one thing, I've said this before, you have to, your home, the temperature in the home has to be comfortable. I hate it when I'm out showing homes, and we live in Arizona, it gets hot here, and it's a hot day, and the seller doesn't want to keep the air on, and so you're in a house that's 90 degrees, and all you're thinking is, how fast can I get out of here? It's so hot and stuffy. The temperature needs to be kept at a comfortable level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we keep the homes a little cool,
Yes.
but not too cold.
Not too cold, yeah, and we understand if it's an empty home, you don't want to like blast the air, but it does need to be at a comfortable temperature so that that buyer wants to stay in that home.
Yes.
Well, see already so many good things. Let's start though at the beginning, Monday. Let's hear about like why did you get interested in design and how did you develop your eye for it?
It's experience because my background is architecture and interior design. So I graduated with the degrees with architecture design, and I've used that since graduating when I was like 1920.
Yeah. 1920.
No, I would say 21. 21 is when I graduated. No, I take that back. 21, I had a business degree, and then graduated with interior and the architecture back in when I was 24.
Okay, yes.
24.
Okay. You were saying 19, I get it. I was like, no, not 1920.
Oh, yes.
You're saying 19 to 20. Okay,
20.
yes.
And then I started working at an interior design firm, but I started with more of a corporate, more of a corporate design. So I started with one of the largest design firms in Nashville, Tennessee, and moved to Arizona and continued to work out in Arizona with one of the largest corporate design firms, and decided, I had a young son at the time, I wanted more flexibility, so got out of the business and got into real estate about 20 years ago. And the real estate has always been that perfect fit because I love every aspect of design. I love watching the homes, the build, the design process, also just people, the people, connecting people with homes.
Yeah.
So that's a passion.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you're really great at it. And one of the things that I think you do really well is not only do you care about the client, but you really help them get their house ready, which that is the biggest and I think almost most overwhelming part of the whole selling process. I'll hear it all the time from clients of like, oh my gosh, I'm like exhausted trying to get it ready. Selling your home is different than living in it. So you do have to depersonalize and declutter and live with a little bit of less. And I always tell my clients, you're going to have to pack it up anyways, so might as well go ahead and get a head start on that now. But it makes a difference. So let's talk about some things that you would say maybe are big mistakes that home sellers do when it comes to selling their home.
Okay, so with I guess the biggest mistake, it wouldn't be a mistake, but it's one, it's an obstacle, a hurdle to get over. It's realizing this home is not your home. You're trying to sell it.
Yes.
So you've got to take the guidance to sell, just kind of separating yourself from your home, because you've got to consider it now. It's your house.
Yes.
It's a property that you're trying to sell. So which means it's very difficult to depersonalize when you've got these lovely family photos, you've got these lovely heirlooms and collections, and you've got to depersonalize. So it is very difficult to do that sometimes, but you've got to realize this is not something that maybe another buyer is going to enjoy. So you've got to take all your personal items out of the equation and realize it's not a home, it's your property that you're trying to sell.
I love that.
So it's I think that's the biggest obstacle, is just knowing that you've got a goal. You want to move forward on selling your home. This is our This is what we are there for.
Yeah.
We're there to help you sell your home.
Yes.
So we're not there to create any negativity, but we're there to guide you as to, well, this is how we're going to get you to the finish line.
So the best thing that a seller could do would be open to that feedback, right? To
Absolutely.
say, tell me what to do and I'll do it. One of the things that we do is we'll send our stager through the house so that they'll just tell the seller, hey, let's move your furniture this way. Let's pack this up. Let's take this and put it over here. And I always tell my clients, it takes the guesswork out of it. So you're not wondering, should I do that? Should I not? Do I put this away? Do I pack it? They'll just tell you and you don't have to think about it. You just follow the instructions. Right. We try to make it easy for them, but it is hard because you think, well, isn't this nice? Another thing I heard, which I thought was so interesting and honestly so accurate, and we have a proof of this, your furniture can date the house. So you can have a very up-to-date house with like a beautiful kitchen, but if the furniture in there is old and dated, then that can actually make it feel old and dated too. And on the flip side, you can have a very dated house and put updated furniture in there, and it can totally transform the house. We just sold one, and it closed today actually, and the house was very brown, right? Very almost like back to that Tuscan era. But the way that she had it decorated, it really elevated it and made it feel like a modern home and beautiful. So furniture is a really important piece too. Sometimes people think, well, I'll leave some of my furniture and you can use that. And more often than not, I say, you know what, just take it. Let us stage the whole thing because that will have a huge impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had the same situation recently on a Tuscan style home.
Yeah.
The Tuscan style home, beautiful home, but it also had a wall of mirrors that were smoky mirrors, also dark flooring, beautiful, beautiful home, but it felt dated because it was dated. So we brought in some furniture finishes, and we just totally transformed the home with just small little touches and small little items, sold before it hit the market.
Yes.
So it was in coming soon stage, hit the market within one day. We had a strong offer. So it's very important.
It works.
So good point. Even if you have a dated home, we can make it feel up to date.
Totally.
With just adding some furniture and finishes and really transforming it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, why don't we kind of talk about what are some tips that you would say are really good for sellers to keep in mind when it comes to getting their house ready to sell? What are some of your best practices?
Okay, so tips with getting ready, of course, you've got to make sure that, so when I walk in, I'm telling my sellers, real estate square footage is valuable. So you want to make sure that you show as much as of your flooring and your walls as possible. So I have them remove as much from their walls. Of course, we'll leave some paintings, some mirrors, but as much as possible from your walls, but also the floors. If the floors are beautiful, we want to showcase those beautiful wood floors. We want to showcase your maybe your plank tile flooring, but remove the rugs. So the major would be just to get as much out as possible. And then that's the same thing with personal items. Just depersonalize, declutter. We need a deep clean. Sometimes it's recommended if you've got a brightly painted room, we do recommend that you have that room painted to a more neutral color. Also, if you've got some window drapes that are very, very dark, we want to take those off because we want to show your home as light and bright as possible.
Yes.
Those are the best for, photography.
Yes.
So photography is what people are going to see to draw them into your home first.
Yep.
But they want to see a light and bright home. So we want to make sure that all those dark drapes are gone. So,
I love that.
Yeah, so little pointers. Also, smell goods. We want to make sure your home smells great.
Yes. Those are also good. So let's talk about light and bright. One of the easiest things to do that will have a really big impact is having your windows cleaned, because sometimes just dirty windows can make the house feel darker. When it comes to showing the home, making sure every light is on in the home, making sure every window covering is open. So if you have plantation shutters, let's make those open. If you have curtains, let's open them up. Let's turn all the lights on, even if it's the middle of the day, because hallways, bathrooms, all of that, you want it to feel warm and inviting. And that is a easy thing to do that can have a really, really big impact.
Yes.
The other thing you talked about was paint. So, again, this is where it's different when you live in the home versus when you're selling it. When you live in the home, you can paint it whatever color you want. That is the joy of being a homeowner and not a renter, right? But when you're selling, you want it to be really neutral so that a buyer can imagine what they would look like or what their furniture would look like living in that home. So one of the greatest, I love just a neutral white right now. Like a creamy white is so good because it really brightens up the space, but it just neutralizes it too. If you have either grays or browns, honestly, that either color is going to feel dated. So right now, white is a great color to paint your walls. Another trick, I just combined tip and trick. Another tip is to paint your baseboards. Yes. Sometimes you can leave your wall colors as they are, but when you have really white and bright baseboards, that can just make the home feel really clean. I've done that before where we've had doors and trim painted and left the wall color, and people think you painted the whole house. But if you have dirty baseboards, that's going to subconsciously communicate to the buyer, hey, this house is not really well cared for. So that's an easy one. Clean your baseboards. If they need to be painted, paint them. It'll really elevate the space.
Right. Another trick that I've used, so light bulbs.
Yes.
Light bulbs are
I know
very
Ian
important.
would
It
agree
sounds
with you
very,
on
very
this.
silly, but
Yes.
light bulbs, make sure that they're all the same. And I always use a soft white.
Yes.
Because that's going to bring in the most natural looking light in your home.
You know, that's a really good idea, Alexa. We should make sure on our list of staging recommendations, because I know Ian's always telling me, Janine, they need to be all the same. We should add that or make sure it's on there. Yeah, I love that. I'm glad you brought that up because that is another big one. Another one I would say is just cleaning your house.
Absolutely.
Right? Making sure the counters are wiped down. If there's smudges on the walls, wipe those down. But like a really good deep clean can go a long way for a buyer's perspective. And again, all of those things are very subtle messages that are communicated to a buyer without them even realizing it. So if a buyer walks through and sees dirtiness, it's dark, you're just like, I don't know. But when it's bright and warm and inviting and super clean, you just love it and you want to stay. And that's what we want. Yeah. We've had this happen several times where sellers have their home, their furniture in the home, and after being on the market for a while, we encourage them to get rid of that furniture and let us come in and stage it, and then boom, that first weekend, those homes are sold because we've created this warm and inviting environment. What else? What are some other good practices, would you say, when it comes to staging?
With staging, materials.
Okay.
So materials is another great. When I say materials, you've got to make sure that there's hard, soft decor in each space. Soft would be your draperies, your pillows, your furniture and rugs, whereas hard surfaces would be more of like your paintings, your decor, your hard decor. You also want to make sure that there's both natural, that you bring in natural finishes such as woods, stones, and we use a lot of green because that brings the outside in. And you want to make sure that there's always some kind of a green in each space.
I love that.
So that does soften the space.
I agree.
Your surfaces, your hard and soft.
Yeah. Another easy thing to do that again has a big impact is switching out your bathroom towels for all white towels. Yes. Just clean, again, you can have like the cutest decor and maybe your towels match, but when it comes to selling, we want to neutralize it. So switching those towels out can have a really big impact. Yes. Another really important area to focus on is that first impression when you come to the front door, that curb appeal. So pressure washing that front door, making sure it's clear of cobwebs can have a big impact. A nice doormat, maybe a wreath on the door. I love kind of focusing with like plants on each side of the door can also really show it off in a great way. And that's their first impression. People forget that, I think, far too often. And it's hard because a lot of us go in through our garage, so we don't go and see our front door. I'm guilty of this too. I go to my front door and it's dusty and dirty, and it's because I don't ever go in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, tell Ray, I need you to hose this down. It's like dirty. But that's where the buyers are going to go first. So making sure that that's warm and inviting and clean can have a big impact.
Exactly. Not only that is sometimes you can just make an easy change by changing out your house numbers.
Oh, yes.
So
I
modernizing
love that.
your house numbers, because sometimes you can see some that are very dated.
Yes.
And you can get those very inexpensively on Amazon.
Yeah.
So just updating your numbers.
That's a great, see these little tips. I love that. That's a great one. Painting a front door too can also have a big impact. Another tip that we've done, or kind of a trick, is instead of having the entire exterior of the home painted, sometimes you can just paint the pop-outs. And the body of the home can stay that color, and that will just brighten it up. It's kind of overwhelming where you're like, wow, it looks like a whole brand new house, and all we did was paint the pop-outs. When it comes, and I'm dealing with this right now with one of my clients, when it comes to a seller selling their home, one of the hardest things for them to do is spend money when they're like, well, I'm moving. I don't want to put more money into this house. And I think that's something that we're really conscientious of, making sure that we're only advising them to do things that are going to actually add to their value and enhance the saleability of the home. Sometimes it's not necessarily a dollar for dollar return, but what does happen is a buyer comes in and buys it and pays full price. Well, that's really valuable versus having to sit on the market for a lot longer. So that's something that I'm super sensitive of, is I don't ever want to advise a client to do something that I can't promise them this is going to help you when it comes to selling.
Exactly. So when we do go with staging a property, we will stage properties because, we've got inventory.
Yes.
So we do have a warehouse that holds our inventory,
Yes.
which is great because that's an added benefit to our clients.
Yes, it is.
But it's very particular because we have to ensure that those homes are vacant.
Yes.
Now, if it's a home that's occupied, we will utilize as much as we can with their existing furniture, their furnishings, their fixtures, but you're right. Sometimes they just need a few little special touches.
Yep.
And it's simple. We don't want any of our sellers, home sellers, to pay a lot or put more into it that would cause a hardship. But our main goal is to get their home sold quickly. And we will only advise you if we feel that this is a much needed expense to help sell your home. So
100%. And that's where sometimes having those hard conversations as the realtor to the client, it's not always easy, but we're not going to tell you what you want to hear, but we're going to tell you what you need to hear. And with everybody beginning their search online, back in the day, it used to be, majority of buyers. Well, now it's every buyer. It does not matter your age. They're looking online before they ever call a realtor. And so if you're trying to sell your home, that means that your home has to show up everywhere, on all third-party websites, everywhere, but it has to show up really well. One of the biggest disservices that kind of goes into staging, but this is something that we take care of, is you've put in all this time and effort and work to make your house look beautiful, and then the agent takes cell phone photos. And that is such a disservice because it doesn't show well. So having a professional photographer that can come in after the house is done and looking beautiful, where they can take beautiful photos of the home, really can take it to the next level. And again, for a buyer that's looking online before they ever call a realtor, we want them to see that home and say, oh my goodness, I want to go see it.
Right. And a good photographer is also going to take photos of features and finishes in your home that really will draw a buyer to make them want to come. Because sometimes you can't just take a photo of a room. You've got to take a photo of their custom, they're custom designed
Yes.
kitchen, anything. Their
Anything.
anything. So it's having that good photographer who has an eye to catch the details that buyers are going to really enjoy.
Yeah, I agree. And again, making sure it's clean. Our photographer is one of the best. And he will even bring a blower and blow leaves off, because we are in that season right now where our houses are just getting dumped on. But making sure it's free of debris can have a huge impact too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What else, Monday? What other tips would you say are important for a seller to think about when they're looking to sell?
So another thing would be, we can go into a home and we can pick out a special feature on each home, because every home has that special feature.
Yeah.
So I think it's really showcasing those features. I just recently had a home go under contract within, again, one day on market. We completely renovated and lightly staged, but one of the focal points was the fireplace.
Yes.
So we choose a focal point in a home that's so unique that a buyer is going to just find that one little appeal attractive.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it just helped us with elevating and selling quick.
I love it. Another really important feature in the home or place is just the kitchen.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, kitchens can be over cluttered, not only with appliances or your air fryer, your toaster, your coffee maker, you name it, and you have all of this on the counter, but then you have lots of like cute decor. We see that all the time. On top of the cabinets, people like to put cute decor up there, but when it comes to selling,
Right.
What would you say?
I would say remove it all, because again, one of the most important things is real estate. You've got to show the real estate of your property, which means all the surfaces, your walls, your floors, but also you brought up a good point, countertops. Countertops are very important because you want to showcase those, especially if you've got an upgraded granite. Some of these granites, grade 5, grade 6, grade all the way to grades 10, 11. They're very unique and custom, and they're something that you're wanting to showcase to a buyer. So nothing on the cabinets except for just a few items. Yeah.
So what would you recommend? Like, I know I love like a cookbook. Right in the corner, maybe a little plant next to it or a candle, just something super simple. What would you recommend?
I would recommend next to the stove, you can have some cutting boards, a cookbook cutting board. I also, in the corners, I do have a little. It's a vignette of 3 items, and usually one of the items might be a diffuser.
Yeah.
Because I want that kitchen to smell great. And it's always like a lemony, like a citrus scent.
Yes.
And then on another counter, you might want to just have like a tray of maybe a couple glasses, some, just a nice wooden, again, you've got to bring in some organic items. So a wooden tray with maybe a candle, some glasses, something that softens the space.
Yes, I love that. And nothing on top of the cabinets.
Nothing on top of the cabinets. No. Not even greenery.
Yeah, just nothing. I agree. Nothing. I totally agree. What would you say about carpets? So this is another really big one that we get. Should I clean the carpet? Should I replace it? And then the seller says, I don't want to do any of that. I just want to give them a credit. What would you say?
If the carpet is bad, I would replace. I would absolutely replace, because, again, first impressions. Sometimes the carpets, we love our pets. And I feel like 90% of our homeowners have pets.
Yeah.
But sometimes those smells are in the carpets. You've got to replace the carpet. And we know of some great contacts that can help you with replacing carpet inexpensively. It's not a huge budget.
Yes.
But that first impression is very important.
And now that's an added feature to a buyer to say, oh, wow, it has brand new carpet. That's a value.
But very neutral color.
Very neutral.
Very neutral color. And I usually don't go up in grade. It's not your typical apartment grade carpet, but maybe a grade up.
Yeah.
So that they can live in the home for maybe a couple years and then decide to redo once they're ready.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Sellers will say, well, I don't what if they don't like what I pick? And I say, that's why we're going to go very neutral, because the point of that is you want the buyer to feel like they can move right in.
Yeah.
The problem is if a buyer sees your home and says, I love it, but I'm going to have to replace the carpet, they will always overinflate what it will cost them. And now they're going to want to take it off your price. So not only, you know, maybe your carpet's going to cost you $5,000, the buyer's going to say, well, it's going to cost me $10,000, so I want that off the price. It's not worth it. Just put the new carpet in, and now that's an added feature, an added benefit, and again, a reason where the buyer may say, I don't really love this carpet, but at least I don't have to replace it right away.
Exactly.
But if the carpet's dirty, they're going to have to deal with that, and nobody wants to deal with that when they're moving into a brand new home.
No. And at this time, with the rates being where they're at, a lot of our buyers don't have that extra cash to move forward with carpets. So it's always best that we put that in before it even goes on the market.
Yeah, we want to overcome any objection from a buyer, right?
Yes.
And control what we can control, right? We can't change your layout. We can't add another bedroom. We're not asking you to do that, but we can change carpet, paint if it's needed, how it's staged, right? Decluttering, depersonalizing. Those are all things that we can handle and control. And that will have a really big impact in terms of that seller's experience when it comes to selling. Anything else you would add? We talked about,
let's see.
You know, this is another really good one. When it comes, because a buyer, when they walk through, if they're in any way, shape, or form interested, they're going to start opening up your cabinets. And they're going to look in the closet. So if you have a linen closet, an easy thing to do is just take all your towels out and refold them so they look really nice. That's, again, very easy, doesn't cost you anything, but it will have a big impact.
Yes.
Versus lived in, right? We tend to shove our towels and things like that in there.
That's a good point, because if it's a lived-in home, I do suggest that if you're going into a pantry, it's always best to see a basket. Something, if you've got small items, and a lot, we have kids, and you've got, you know, your snacks, your treats. It's going to make your real estate in your pantry seem larger if you've got everything organized. So I always suggest some baskets, something to just keep everything more straight.
I love that. And buyers, whether seller realizes it or not, a buyer, as they're walking through your home, they're building the story about this home up. And so if they open up a pantry and see it messy, things shoved in there, they're going to, unfortunately this is true, they're going to start to think, well, what else are they kind of not really taking care of? That maybe on the outside looks pretty, but when you get on the inside isn't so well cared for. But if they open up your pantry or your linen closet and see everything neat and tidy, now they're going to transfer that over to the home as well and say, okay, well, if they take care of their linen closet like this or their pantry, then they must be taking care of their HVAC, all of those other things. So whether we like it or not, our home tells a story about how we've cared for it. And
it's
you
all
have
perception, right?
It is,
It's
and
perception.
you have total control over that.
Right, but the garage does not count.
Correct.
Because we do know
Yes.
but the home sellers, when they're preparing their home, they've got to have a staging area for their items. So
and we say that, that's the one spot where it's okay to put in there, and buyers are okay with that.
they're okay.
I love it.
Yeah.
Anything else, Monday, that we didn't cover that you think is important?
I just feel that staging a property to get it on the market, to get those first impressions is very important.
Yeah.
Again, cost, we try to minimize the cost, but the cost of staging, sometimes there is a cost there, but I feel that with a staged property, you're going to give that great first impression to a buyer where they can visualize being in that home. It may not, in this market, it may not get you more dollar per dollar, but it will sell quicker and it will attract, because right now we have over 22,000 homes on the market, and you've got to stand out above the rest of the homes that are similar to yours. So when you walk into a home that's staged as opposed to non-staged, that staged home is always going to feel warmer, and it's always going to attract, and it will get you an offer quicker because the feel. When a buyer goes into a home, they just want to feel good.
Yes.
And when they go into a model home, it's great to go into a brand new home, new model home. That's what we want for our sellers' properties. Now we understand they're not new, but we want to make them as new feeling as
Yes.
possible. So that's why we stage.
And that's why it's important to work with a professional, and not only a professional realtor, but someone that has experience, because we know what buyers are looking for and we can help you and make it easy on you. One of the families I met with yesterday that I'm going to be meeting with on Monday to get their house on the market said to me, Janine, you just make it so easy. And I'm like, that is what I'm here for, because this process of selling your home can be very stressful. There will be bumps along the way, right? And we can't take all of that stress away, but let us help minimize it as much as possible. And when you have an experienced agent on your side, not only will it keep your stress level at bay, but it will oftentimes translate into a lot more money in your pocket at the end of the day. And that's what it's about. When you come to sell one of your biggest assets, who wants to leave money on the table? I want every penny out of that.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And that's what you get when you work with us.
Exactly. And you don't want your home sitting on the market long.
No.
Because it does get a stigma. It does get that distressed feel. So we want to make sure that they sell quickly. And stage properties, they do sell a lot quicker.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. Well, this was fun Monday. I think our listeners, if they listen to this and they're thinking about selling, we gave them a ton of really valuable pieces of information that they can take and go implement. And and I love working with you, and I love all that you shared. So
thank you,
Monday.
Enjoy working with you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to the Real Deal podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe, and you can follow us on social media at the Home Selling Team AZ.